my job really easy because now we only have a few minutes left, and actually all three speakers have addressed pieces and parts of what I was going to talk about. There is one thing that attorneys do well, particularly local government attorneys, and I consider myself one, is we say no a lot because that is the easy way. We say, no, you can't do that. I think in order to serve our public the best, we have to say, let's see how we can do something. And that's always weighing the risks versus the benefits. That's just the way I think you have to look at it. And so, most of these issues have been addressed, but I just want to bring up some things to think about whether you've started using social media or whether you're just thinking about it. One issue is, and it's been mentioned, most of these things have, you should make sure that you do have a policy on the use of social media, and also make sure that that policy is consistent with whatever other policies you may have. A lot of localities already have policies about use of technology, policies about use of county property, and just make sure that however you address social media, it remains consistent with those other policies. Another issue that is pretty controversial is that each of these social media sites has their own terms and conditions, and one of the things that is astounding to me about technology is every time we use something on technology, don't we click agree, but there's 10 pages of small print that we haven't read because we really just want to go in and use it, right? That's a contract, and when you're clicking I agree, you're agreeing to the terms and conditions in that contract. And I will bring up most of the social media contracts or terms and conditions are pretty non-controversial. There are some real issues that people have brought up about Facebook, social media terms and conditions, and the federal government has negotiated its own agreement because they felt that many of Facebook's terms and conditions didn't fit a governmental entity. States and localities have not been successful in that arena. Some have tried and not been able to modify them. Those types of things in the Facebook terms and conditions that raise some concerns with government attorneys there are some indemnity issues in there, paying of attorney's fees, some language that looks like hold harmless language that is a problem for governmental entities. There's definite language in there about choice of venue, resolution of disputes, and I can tell you, if you're going to use Facebook, you're going to be settling everything in the state of California, unless you alter that. And so that's just something to think about. Am I saying don't use it? No, I'm saying know these things about the terms and conditions about each of these different kinds of medias, because it's easy to click I agree and not to read all that information, but it's important information. And Teresa brought up, there are constitutional issues with social media because depending on what kind of media you're using and how you're using it, Teresa talked about group versus fan. You may be creating an open public forum. You may be creating a limited public forum. And there are different rules about what you can do with comments that come on these types of forums. So these are things just to think about. Disclaimers and policies about what can be said are, I think, a must, but there's sort of this new wave of lawsuits that are coming up about things that are removed and people feeling that's an infringement of their free speech. So these are things we're going to be seeing as these technologies develop. Privacy is a big issue. And this is why I think it's really imperative that you think about what departments are using it and what they're using it for. I know David talked about that a lot. There have been unfortunate situations where in a desire to communicate with people who need to be communicated with, whether it's a social services department or maybe mental health, that certain pieces of private information have gotten on these pages, and you could face a world of hurt if that happens. People are trying to be helpful, but sometimes information gets on these social medias that you cannot share, that are going to violate HIPAA and other privacy concerns as well. So something to think about. Copyright and intellectual property, even though it's easy to get and easy to copy, all the same rules apply as if it's a book. You have to think about those issues, about whether you can share it without permission, just something to think about. Defamation, people can put things up that are false, misleading, and injure people's reputation without even thinking about it. And those are things that you have to think about if you are allowing an interactive type of forum. There are some federal laws relating to social media that provide some protection to providers or people who have these pages, something to think about. And real key in Virginia, and Teresa mentioned it, Records Retention Act, Freedom of Information Act. Two state laws, they absolutely apply to social media, to everything about social media. And I think since Teresa's office has started to use it, the Library of Virginia actually has come out with an electronic records guideline. It was December of 2009 when they came out with it, and they actually mention, they specifically address social networking applications, Facebook, MySpace, Twitter. And what they say is exactly what you do. They note that it is the substance of what is said that controls how long it needs to be kept. Because there is a record retention schedule for every one of your types of records, whether it's a land use record, whether it's a public utility record, whether it's your board minutes. And what now the Library of Virginia is saying, recognizing that all sorts of governmental entities are using these, is to look at that substance of that record and keep it just as Roanoke does. So good decision on your part, even before you had guidance. What's the substance? Keep it for that amount of time. And absolutely, and Teresa addressed it too, you have to find a way to access these records as well, because they are FOIAble, which I don't mean it like foiled again, but you can get Freedom of Information Act requests for your Facebook page on such and such a date, that kind of thing. In many cases, a lot of times governmental entities are posting information or documents that they have somewhere else.